Sam says hi. Do you see Sam? He's alive. And he's back. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
We were thinking about you, buddy. He's in a lot of pain, though, so don't hit him on the back. Just actually don't touch him. Just let him be. If you want that, I don't know which one's better, Sam. I don't know. You do you. Whatever's
This one's
better.
because this one has more thing.
More like give in it?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's just going to be relaxing and trying not to hurt. Not that you can stop that, but still try not to hurt. Joyce, today we are, and everybody else, we're going to go ahead and see if you guys have any questions on the 2016 FRQs. 1 through 4. If you haven't done 5 and 6 yet, have those done for tomorrow. We're turning them in tomorrow just for a quick completion grade. You guys will get them right back the next day. Sound good? Cool. Your when you see, you think. What are you doing with that tomorrow, guys? You're turning it in. Oh, hero. Right now, we could go to our class folder, and I will in a new tab. But why am I also going to AP exam review? Because it's a good idea. With the AP exam review, there's all kinds of cool stuff that I've put in. There's a Barron's practice exam. There's 2,000. Now, do I want you guys to do all of these before Saturday? And the answer is
Yes.
no, because we have a month after that, right? We have a month after that to go over AP practice, etc., etc. However, do you guys see your when you see, you think solutions?
I didn't look at it, but I knew it was there.
Yeah. So the when you see, you think solutions for the AB and BC, I'm going to double check it is BC, but I think I have, yeah, I have BC. There's a calculus cheat sheet for BC. There's the FRQ collections. There's a complete idiot's guide to calculus. There's the McGraw-Hill that now it's only AB for that one, which is kind of sad. Notes in the BC exam, what to expect, etc., etc., etc. However, we already talked about in your classroom how I posted a link to 2 really good blogs with lots of online sample tests, right? Did I actually? I did, right?
Yeah.
No? Did I not talk about it? You guys are looking at me blankly. Okay. And then in your shared drive, we already talked about the 2016 that were already there, right? Underneath handouts, assignments, and then we're going to go. I'm pulling up the FRQs real fast in case you guys do have any questions. And then once again, we're going to go over your test corrections that were supposed to be due, number 1, that every single person missed. Dun, dun, dun.
What was the question? Test question? Yeah, I was trying to ask you questions, and that lady came in and started asking questions.
Yeah, I know. For an hour.
I was trying to.
For an hour.
She wasn't asking me questions. She was more just telling me her life story.
We were gonna fight her. Oh, we could have faked an emergency. We gotta work on a signal, okay?
You didn't come with like blood or anything?
All right, Miss T. So, so if you ever want to get out of a conversation, incorporate the word. I want to say either bleach or muckalucka. Bleach seems.
I'm not sure either of them will naturally
I was thinking
flow.
apple, but apple would be too easy. I think.
Don't you want something easy?
Well, I mean, like, what if you're just talking about what you had for lunch and you had an apple, and like you didn't really want it to, but I heard.
And you come and like tackle the poor person I'm
Wow.
talking to?
You could say, man, I really want some coffee.
Ooh.
Here we go. Man, I really want some coffee.
Or just something about coffee.
Yeah.
Just incorporate
Okay.
it.
That can't be my code word because I say that wrong.
All right, something about coffee. I'll do. Okay.
Something about coffee. Got
Or
it.
wanting coffee. That way, it's like.
But during like a particular situation, not just me at my desk, you come tackle me. Let's not do that.
No, not tackle you. I'll fake an emergency.
Oh, that's
like,
fine.
Find
That's
a way
fine.
to get the guy.
I understand.
Find a way to win.
All right.
All right.
2016. There it is. Let's start there. Any questions on 1 through 4?
1D and 3D.
FRQs, you're supposed to theoretically have 1 through 4 attempted and graded.
I thought we said just. Is Conrad Rutherford here? No.
How do you say it?
Joseph
Is
Conrad?
there another
I
Conrad?
think he's dead.
No?
Then I don't know why I said Conrad.
I mean, I think his parents, I think he lives alone now, so he probably just doesn't want to go to school anymore.
What's alone?
His parents moved to North Carolina.
Already?
What?
They might have come back for the weekend, I don't really know, but as far as I know, he's living
Why would
alone.
you leave your kid by
He's 18,
He's still a kid.
and he wanted to, he didn't want to do it.
Why would he?
Were they paying for his home?
There's the homeschool under the dash, and they were trying to
Yeah,
find a place for him. I don't know how I know.
I'm not sure if we should have it all taped. Anyway, so
Oh.
Which one, Gerardo?
1D and 3D.
1D and 3D. Okay. Who wants to help explain 1D? Which asked us for, is there a time when the water pumped into the tank is the same as the rate at which the water is removed from the
I
tank?
can tell you what I have, but I only got 1 point out of my answer. Oh, but there's right there, so never mind.
But what'd you guys do though? How'd you check it? You're trying to see if there's any time where they'll be the same. It is a calculator problem. This might not be the only way.
Well, me and Ms. D, we graphed it,
Yeah.
and we saw that we weren't able to graph R of t, but we were able to graph R of 0 and R of 8 because we knew the values. So we saw that somewhere in between those 2 points, the graph of W crossed. So that means we knew by IVT there would be at least 1 point t that it would be equal. We just couldn't figure out. We just didn't know which one. And then, yeah, but I didn't incorporate WT minus RT. So
What does the WT minus RT mean?
it's showing that it is in between. The graph would be in between. So WT minus W0 minus R0 would show that since it's greater than 0, it is
There's a positive
there's
difference.
a positive difference, and then there's since you scroll down a little more, I think it's left, right?
Well, why are they subtracting? If they're the same, then the subtraction, you're trying to look for could it be 0.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And then since it's less than 0, that means the top is there's a bound on the top where they're together.
They asked you, is there any place at which WT equals RT? AKA, or another way of saying it, is there any time at which WT minus RT will equal 0? And so what Georgie was talking about is we were able to see that W basically it was strictly decreasing somehow, right?
It says strictly decreasing. Oh,
Yeah, and the graph of it was like W of 0 was this high positive number, and W of 8 was this lower number, so you're able to graph W since he's a function. And then we were able to know that R of t, since it was strictly, was it decreasing as well, or was it increasing?
R of t, it said, is decreasing. Yeah, decreasing on the interval 0 to t.
And you guys found R of 0, right?
Yeah, R of
It's in the
no, we
table.
have it, yeah.
You have R of 0, and then you have R of 8, which I think was over here somewhere.
It's 700.
And if you knew it was strictly decreasing, I had Georgie just graph those two y values. So you know R somehow, however, goes in between here to here. Now, if it goes in between here to here, however you connect it, it's strictly decreasing. Oh, that would be increasing, decreasing. If it's strictly decreasing, it's going to have to hit that graph. The main point was how do we describe that? And so one way of describing it is since W strictly decreases from this value to this value, it's going to have to hit all the values in between. Since R decreases from this value to this value, it's going to have to hit all the values in between. So there must be some point at which they're going to equal. However, their use of IVT is a little bit more strategic in the sense of, hey, this is a positive difference, aka W is above R. This is a negative difference, this is a negative difference in that W is below R. So isn't the difference somewhere going to be 0 by IVT? And the answer is yes, just because W and R are both continuous.
I like your way. Makes more sense.
My way visually makes more sense. And it basically does use IVT, right? Because if it's continuous, it has to go from there to there, continuous from there to there, so it's going to have to hit. It's going to have to intersect. And if you guys notice on their answer key, they say W minus R. I don't think you truly have to consider that though. I wonder if there was in 2016, maybe I'll look at it on everything. And see, because they do like a quick little synopsis in the sense of analyzing the FRQs and how students did. So maybe, I showed you guys that yesterday, maybe we could look at the student responses and see if they didn't allow for the whole graphical, whatchamacallit. So I think that makes more sense in my mind.
Have you written our final?
Huh?
Have you already written our final? Or do you write
Oh, I don't write it. Are you kidding? No. If I wrote it, it wouldn't be like the AP at all.
I figured you would just like take problems to past APs, like multiple different APs, and then just throw them in.
Yeah, I just feel that's not a great judge, a great measure of an actual AP because what I choose might not necessarily be what they choose. But I could do something like it.
Yeah.
But the weighting and stuff, I wouldn't feel would be very accurate.
Okay. So you just take like one of the hidden ones?
Yeah.
But then don't you usually give us the answers after that?
But I don't post it electronically,
Okay.
and as long as it's not posted electronically, it's probably okay. In the sense of as long as some random kid doesn't say like, I got a hidden exam, I'm gonna scan my PDF and post it online and make a big deal about it. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you guys that, not the AV kids, because knowing one of them, they probably do it. You guys said 3D. As you guys go to 3D, I'm actually also looking. Was there anything else in between, or was it just 1D and 3D?
3D was just total distance, right?
And 3D was find the intervals for g of x less than 0. But I have a problem with that.
3D, not that. 3D. Yeah, so this would just be FTC kind of.
Yeah.
This is the accumulation function, technically, right?
Yeah.
Just to help out a little bit.
My problem is this. I found that it's less than 0, -4, all the way to 0, but 0, 0 with, I want to say 0 with an open, no. Yeah, 0 with an open interval, because it has not 0, right?
It says less than or equal to.
Yeah, so if it's an open interval from -4 to 0, it'll satisfy that, and you can say 0 with an open interval.
But what about -4 to 2? You take 2? Because if you plug in 2, the integral from 2 to 2 is 0.
Yeah, -4 to 0.
So
But
-4
close
to 2.
interval, right?
Open. Closed for, open at 0. Because they say -4 to 2, but it's positive from 0 to 2.
No, it's not. Because it would be from
It
0.
starts at 2.
You plug in 0 from 2 to 0, that'd
You
be
go
a negative
backwards.
integral.
If you go from 2 to 0, think about the balance being flipped. You see a positive area, but just think of it this way, Gerardo. If you're moving backwards on the graph, the signs will be flipped.
I didn't
So-
look at that.
Since you go 2 backwards, that's going to be negative, that's going to be a bigger negative, that's going to be negative and a positive, but is this enough to what am I trying to say, to compensate for that positive, or sorry, is this positive going to compensate for that negative answer?
This D?
Yeah.
Alright, so on C, they show it's a justified music.
Wait, sorry, Gerardo, you also got from 10 to 12, right? Okay. George, go ahead.
On C it says justified, I think they only did a chart. But, I could be wrong.
No, this is the one that I'm talking about in the sense that I'm
And then
pretty
just give the
sure
answer.
that they allow, I would just like you guys to go ahead and state somewhere, like when testing the critical numbers and the endpoints.
And then, but my thing was, they gave you credit for checking -4 and 12 and then -2 and 6, but not 2 and 10, so those wouldn't be zeros?
Well, 2 and 10,
Because
if
they're
we
just
look at them,
points.
because they're looking for absolute mins and absolute maxes.
So it'd be zeros and
But since-
DNEs, but those aren't DNEs, but I feel like it goes.
But since it doesn't change signs, it can't be a max or a min.
Okay.
Right. So if you think of G prime, you're thinking of F. So they just went ahead and said, yeah, they're critical numbers, and you could have tested them, but they would say you should have been able to narrow them down as not being possible relative extrema. And ultimately, the test says test the relative extrema with the endpoints.
Yeah, so I did the endpoints and then those two, but I also included 2 to 10.
So you were doing the test the critical numbers and the endpoints, which includes test the relative extrema and the endpoints, just not all critical numbers are relative extrema, so they didn't even give you points for those.
Okay.
But it's not improper for you to try.
Okay, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, it's not improper to try.
For C, I put max at x.
Sorry, 4 as in number 4?
No, this one's.
Okay.
I put max at x equals 6 because G prime goes from positive to negative and
That's a relative. It's an absolute. That will only be enough to prove a relative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was confused about that. I was like, how do I test for absolutes? I don't have endpoints for it.
Okay, you do. Maybe a form.
No, like, I don't have, that's G prime. So how do I know what G of the endpoints are?
Use the area. Does that make sense? You could also talk about the net change in the sense of what occurs on the interval from 2 to 6. But we still need to understand the idea of area. But if you think about G prime, how do you figure out G? You always have to integrate area under the stuff.
can't figure out D still. Like it's not processing. For Y, the interval is -4 to 2 again.
You just shade. So when you do -4, you plug in 2 to -4, right? And then you would shade on the graph from 2 all the way to -4, but you're going backwards, right? So you're gonna have negative.
It was branding super high.
Why?
Did you bundle?
That's something weird. Just like randomly decided to unorient.
So what I did, I plugged in a bunch of points, Amanda. I did the little triangle. So from -4 to 2, I'd be going this way. I have this triangle minus or plus this triangle, but since this one's a negative, I'm going to subtract, and then since this one's going backwards, I'm going to have a negative there, and I just plug in the one half base inside.
Okay.
And then you just keep doing that for, yes,
Okay. That makes sense.
How do you set it so it has like 16 will cover that?
What do you want to do with that?
That makes sense? So you can just literally find the area of the triangles, or you can see that this one is equal to that one. So as I move backwards, these are all going to be flipped what they look like. So the positive is going to be negative side this plus that, which is an overall positive change greater than that negative. So the positive becomes a negative. So right away, since I'm moving backwards on a positive, it's going to be negative, 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 negative. In the sense that I'm subtracting, 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 subtracting. I start adding, but not enough to get all the way up to make up. Okay. Anything else? 1 through 4.
For the C part, you just plug in all the relatives and the endpoints to the accumulator function.
Yep, and find the areas.
Okay.
Can we do 4D?
Yeah.
This is Euler's, and I looked at the answer key.
So we have our differential equation, which we need to use in Euler's, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a differential equation that tells us about our derivative. For Euler's, when we come down to look at it, let's go here first. 2 steps of equal size to go from h of 0 to h of 1. Well, what 2 equal steps would get us from here to here? 0.5 and 0.5. So I know that as I go to Euler's method, that you could start with the very, very beginning one, which is what we technically did. You would start with h of 0 is equal to what?
What?
2.
If you go higher.
So, yeah. Go where you go.
h of 0 equals 2. But then as soon as you go to your first step, you would take a first step of 0 plus a half. So we have h of a half. The approximate, because it's Euler's, we take our last point, which is h of 0, plus, we use our capital F, talking about the differential equation. They use h prime either way. Just remember that you're trying to use the equation of the tangent line in a sense. You can say y is equal to m, or the derivative, times x plus the y value from the one before. But we take our y value from the one before, which is 2. We take our derivative and we plug in.
So,
What do we plug in?
Yeah.
Because we only have.
they only give us h
Oh,
of
do they not
0.
give you? Is that fine?
They give us an x squared minus 1 half y. So then where do we plug it in?
We have
X
taken a
equals
solution to
0.
the differential equation. Oh, h prime is dy dx.
Right, but
We don't have.
x equals 0.
And y equals 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And so we have, negative 1. Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense? And
Um,
then once you find that one, then you have a new x and a new y to plug in.
Yeah.
But then we'll, okay. So we want to check out the answer.
I was just trying to figure out where they got the -1.
Yeah, so plugging in 0, 2, and then plugging in 1 half. Because remember, you use the last information to build the next step. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
so
just
1 through
confused
4.
now.
Okay, try 5 and 6 tonight. If you haven't yet, grade it and then come back with what you guys have questions on. P.S. What are you supposed to be studying for Thursday?
Conductors?
Yep, Forever's Endeavors. What's it going to look like? Kind of like the one after Christmas break, but with everything.
Oh, I'll be here for that talk. I don't leave until noon. I'll be here for that. Track.
Oh, but you'll be here in class, yeah. Gerardo.
On 1D, I
I think we already talked about that
don't know
one.
how to word. I don't know how to word it.
If you did the always level 3, and then the sheet.
The easiest way would be with this one. I did go ahead and open it up really quickly.
Oh, yeah. Nothing for English, right? And I did that.
I didn't do that. I thought it was due yesterday, and it sounded like that.
I did it today, or I did it last night, because I thought it was Tuesday.
Did you do all the elemental things? I didn't even realize
I
that.
just did them all at once.
I couldn't figure him out when we first started, so I was like, oh, that means it's probably not due. They're probably just things that aren't there. And
No,
I'll
all of
just
them
have the videos running in the back while you are
do on double speed too. They're like, yeah, that's what I do.
What? Yeah.
Okay, guys, if you want to look really quickly at George and Maya's approach to 1D, they're talking about, this is in the AP Cal, the student performance Q&A as to how kids did on this one. For 1D, it said it was especially challenging. A lot of kids didn't like making a new function, yada, yada, yada. Nearly all students chose to view W and R as competing functions, which is what George and I did and talked through, with W starting above and finishing below. With this approach, a complete explanation, which means they're not saying it's illegal, but a complete explanation gaining all the points, would need IVT twice to each of W or R, or appeal to the continuity of both W and R, which we technically, I think, George, we talked
Yeah,
about, didn't we? Many students noting that the range of W contains the range of R in the interval failed to note the crucial assumption of continuity for both functions. So they didn't actually prove their case. They said it, but they didn't prove it with the continuity. So a student that got all 9 points, what did they answer? Ooh, smarty pants. They went ahead and used W minus R. Student that,
We talked about the continuity and IVT.
oh, they got it totally wrong.
Yes, because
Yeah,
the
no.
amount of water
They got,
flowing out.
yeah, they got 3 points. They missed a lot.
Alright, so what
Okay.
I said was,
So we did better than them. What did we say, George?
I said it says RT is bounded by Y within 1340 and 700, and WT is decreasing on the interval from T within 0 to 8, and bounded by Y within 2000 to 81.524. By IVT, since both functions are continuous on the interval T within 0 to 8, there must be a shared value T on the interval.
Yeah, I think we proved it successfully.
Can you picture that? Sure.
And then Ms. D.
Yeah.
For the when you see things tonight, for K, it talks about infinite series, so it's all of our 9-step things. But then the questions are to say determine whether a series converges. So do you want us to say all of the things that would show it converges? Because that's what the answer key said, I think.
That wouldn't be a bad way.
Okay.
It's not listing all the entire test, because the end term test wouldn't apply, right? That would be one way, or it would be which tests can prove continuity. Well, it's the same thing. Which tests can prove, and then a quick little like, hey, when for this case is it continuous? Yeah, that works. That works. Gerardo.
For D, George has written and mentioned W of T minus R of T. Do we have to still? Since you answered it.
I feel like our answer, it like kind of looks, it doesn't directly mention it, but it shows what you would get out of, it shows what you would get out of doing it, but I think our answer is just a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
It's not truly clear enough. That
It's not as nice, short, sweet, simple, concise, precise as using W minus R.
So I don't have to use W.
No. Yeah, as I was saying, that explanation does work as long as you use the correct, you prove the correct necessary conditions for what you're trying to say. Meaning continuity, and then theoretically you should say IVT.
So is the forever final, is it Forever's Endeavors?
Yes.
Okay.
But this isn't the final, this is a quest, so it's not going to be worth as much as the final. The final's going to come closer to the actual AP.
Okay, and then, is it going to be, do you know how many questions?
It would be similar length as the Christmas one, so one page front and back, some short
like
rules,
some answer.
what are derivatives, integrals, special limits, L'Hopital, etc. And then some definitions, probably some of the converging, diverging tests, and then the rules could go into polar parametric and vectors. Does that make sense? Stepping stone.
Please tell me.
The forevers are. I did that one yesterday, so I'll make sure the endeavors are today. Okay, so, I mean, theoretically, you're supposed to be copying them in your cards as you go along, so I should be able to get it from you guys instead of vice versa, but you know.
Oh, but sometimes, like, when we wrote that in the notes and what's actually on that never Google Drive folder, it's like, sometimes.
I copy and paste directly from the notes, so I'm kind of confused as to that, but maybe, like, you shortcut what's written in the notes? I don't know.
That might be it.
All right, cool kids. So, is there anything else on? We have up through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Anything else on the when you see you things you guys have questions on?
G9, G12, G13. I want to argue the case on H6 and
Okay,
H7.
okay, so if you list
H9.
them.
G9 is just displacement. You got it. G12, we're talking about the maximum distance. You're just trying to find the maximum position, absolute max, so testing critical numbers and endpoints, aka turning points, set velocity equal to 0. Yeah.
G9, so displacement, that's not absolute value?
No, displacement is final position minus initial position. So like positive change in, you're moving to the right, negative change in, moving to the left, and you're just trying to figure out the final change from the final minus initial positions. Total distance is like your odometer, where it doesn't matter where you go, it's just going to keep on compiling.
Oh.
Okay. And then
For G11, I just put integral T1 to T2, absolute value of V T dt equals capital S of T2 minus capital S of T1.
No. Handling integration with absolute value, it's a forever card. You have to check for intersections between T1 and T2, and you have to split up the integral, and then if it's negative, you solve them separately, and then the ones that are negative make them positive, the ones that are positive stay the same, and then add them all up.
you just look for zeros, right? Not,
Yeah, look for zeros, split up at the zeros, pull the absolute value outside each of the integrals.
And I thought you said between T1 and T2. Oh yeah, I see.
Look for the zeros in between, yeah.
I see what
Yeah, does that make sense?
Split up into zeros and then solve individually by
you're
pulling the
saying.
absolute value out.
Pulling the absolute value out.
Stuff of the
Yeah.
So, individually pull
Then you guys said G13?
G13.
Oh, G12, you're just finding the absolute max of position using the absolute maximum ideas. Critical numbers, endpoints. Absolute maximum of position. How do we find the absolute maximum? We just talked about it in FRQs. How do you
Yeah,
find the
absolutely.
absolute max?
Test endpoints and critical numbers.
Precisely. Critical numbers would be S prime equals 0, aka or DNE, aka velocity equals 0 or DNE. Test them in position.
That sounds nothing like what was written up there.
Turning points. Sorry, Jordan, I thought you were tracking earlier. Turning points is when velocity equals 0
Right.
and the sign changes. That's the same thing as the relative extrema. So this finds the relative extrema, finding the critical numbers, or I should say the relative extrema. Then they say to go ahead and they say from the starting position. So starting position would mean that you don't start with an original change in, meaning that 0 is going to lose. And then they say go ahead and figure out what's going on at T sub 1. They should have included T sub 1 and they didn't. So the starting position was at 0. They're assuming maximum displacement. They should have included endpoints and they didn't. Okay. Now what?
Let's see, are we doing -1/4 for every blank on this thing, like KB?
Yeah.
Is every blank wherever there's blue.
Pause, not important. What else?
If there are no other ones, would we be able to go on to J and K?
Technically? Mm-hmm.
I guess I think number 12.
I-12.
Oh my gosh, it's just I too.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
The dot product, I didn't think we had to know that for BC.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
I never learned that.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's from pre-cal. I don't think you need to know it. I haven't seen them use it. It's important in vectors for physics. I wouldn't say it's important for us because it doesn't show up in any of our formulas, but I think it probably helps find some of the formulas. That might be why they brought it in. But it's literally just first times first plus second times second. That's all it is. Good question, though. I don't think you need to know that. I haven't seen you need to know that, I should say.
Oh.
Anything else, guys?
Oh, I meant to write
Oh, that's an E, okay. I guess you can stuff with them.
Let's go ahead and say, I just showed you guys where the answer key is online, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's in not only the AP exam review, it's also in your shared folder. You guys finish that up tonight, yeah? And then let's come tomorrow with questions as to ones that you're not quite sure how to understand. Because you don't need me to check stuff. With that, let's go ahead and play with just a couple multiple choice before we finish. Is that the right one?
Did you say we were going to be able to work on test correction number 1?
Oh, I forgot about that. Struggle.
Not as okay,
I don't have the test specifically.
but you want to
Do I?
have it.
I don't think I have it. I don't have a good document. Actually, I can just steal an Algebra 1 for a second. Let me steal an Algebra 1 for a second.
You can do it on the homework question.
Okay. So what was the question in test correction number 1?
I think you can do it.
It actually works.
I should touch it again against all this way.
Yeah, it's not even the orientation sadly, it has something else to do with.
Okay, if the smart one being stupid. You want to do it on the whiteboard? Yeah. That'd be easy. Oh. Well, I mean, you can pick it up. And then
Can you write it on your computer?
Oh, yeah. You have your iPad?
Yeah.
Is that not working? Technology.
Okay, so it tells me in the problem degree 100, Taylor polynomial. It tells me about x equals 3. And it gives me the polynomial, the infinite polynomial? Yeah. All the way up to the 100th one. And it says, what is the value of f of 30? Is it not up? Okay. What's the notation mean?
30th degree polynomial? Yes.
Yeah.
When it's raised to the 30th.
Doesn't want the 30th degree polynomial.
What's 30th term?
No.
I don't know.
What does f to a power denote?
Derivative.
Uh-huh. So it wants the 30th derivative of f at 3.
Yes.
So it wants the 30th derivative of f at 3. There are technically two ways of doing this, because remember, the cool part about a Taylor polynomial and a function's relationship is that their derivatives match up. And if their derivatives match up, couldn't we theoretically find p prime 30 times?
Yeah.
And then plug in 3?
We can-
Yes. We could. Doesn't mean it's a great idea, but it is one idea. The other idea is to see if we can figure out from the notation, thinking back to our definition of a Taylor polynomial, how you would have f of 3 plus f prime of 3 times x minus 3 plus f double prime of 3 all over 2 factorial times x minus 3 squared. If we could figure out the pattern as to what the term is going to look like, and so what the coefficient is going to be, in order to try to find the 30th. Both ways are valid, both ways could technically work. So what we could do, theoretically, is we could start finding derivatives, meaning we could go ahead and say, you know what would p prime be? P prime would be 2 times x minus 3 plus, we could say dot dot dot, because here's the long story short. So if we were trying to find p prime of 3, which would match up to f prime of 3, isn't that just 0? And how can we see that up here? Isn't the first degree term missing? The first degree term meaning x minus 3 to the first power, etc., etc. So therefore we could go ahead and say, okay, well the first derivative is 0. What would the second derivative be?
2 minus.
Yeah, you would have your 2, and then you would have plus. Now, we would need to go ahead and think of what were the rest of the terms that were here and that were chilling that we missed. So this first derivative of this one would be 4 times x minus 3 all to the third power all over 2 factorial, or 2. The next term would be 6, bring down x minus 3 raised to the 5th all over 3 times 2 times 1 would be 6, etc. So we would bring down and we'd have 12 times x minus 3 squared all over 2 plus 30 times x minus 3 to the 4th power all over 6. So then we could say, what would p double prime of 3 be? Which would match up to f double prime of 3? Plug in 3, they all cancel, right, with x minus 3? So wouldn't we just have 2? Right? But what's the other way of finding that 2? That's what we're trying to figure out. Gerardo, what's the other way of finding the second derivative of f at 3?
F prime of 3 over 2 factorial equals 1 over 2 factorial. 2, sorry.
Yeah, we could go ahead and figure out the general term, and the general term would say, okay, f double prime of 3 all over 2 factorial is what should be in front of my x minus 3 squared, right? But what is in front of there instead? A 1,
1.
right? So we could go ahead and take this, and then we could say, okay, so f double prime of 3 all over 2 factorial ended up equaling 1, so what ended up being the value for f double prime of 3? 2. So whether you actually take a derivative or whether you plug in the sense of find the coefficient of that term and set that equal to the coefficient that should be there, both ways would work. So when we come to the 30th, couldn't we technically say f, the 30th derivative of 3 all over, what would the factorial be? 30 factorial times x minus 3 to the 30th power, right? That's what should be there. Question, what do we actually end up seeing as being there? So that's the 30th of 3 all over 30 factorial equals, question, what coefficient would be the 30th?
30 factorial.
Nope. 15 factorial, how come? Check out the nth term. If this is 30, what is this? 15. Or if you notice looking at these ones, just think about it. I have 4 becoming 2. I have 6 with 3 factorial. What would 30 be with again? 15. So then coming on back, I say, okay, I'm going to end up with 1 over 15 factorial. How do I solve? Multiply by 30 factorial. Oh, we haven't even thought about alternating signs, have we? But 30th, wouldn't that be a positive? Is it the even ones that are positive? Oh, they're all positive.
They're all positive, yeah.
Got it.
Except for, no. The last one is minus.
Oh, weird. That was a typo.
That is, okay.
That's a total typo. All the even ones are positive. There we go. All right. So, now that we have those ones done, you guys want to play with some APs? BT dubs, one of them is an inverse. Ooh, that's a forever card. Ooh, how do we do that? Ooh. Ready, set? I have the answers. You guys have the questions. Let's powwow in a couple minutes and see if you got them right.
What's the